Before I get any further in, of course, I like to dedicate this to Most High God. As always, we always put the Most High God first. But having said that, I want to get into some of the comments that Bob Arum had to say about the fight Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz, and just a number of different comments about it and what I think about that. Shout out to Greg Hackett on YSM News, YSM. Once again, Greg Hackett doing his thing. And also shout out to Coach Eric Bradley, the fight doctor on masswithboxing.com, as well as shout out also to Troy Killertainment. Shout out to all of these people. Adios, amigo. Adios, amigo. Yeah. Here on the job as usual, putting in work. So Teofimo Lopez for Jermaine Ortiz, and as I already said, Jermaine Ortiz outboxed Teofimo Lopez. Bob Arum said that Jermaine Ortiz was disgraceful to the sport of boxing. His performance was terrible, and this guy trashed the wrong fighter. What I can't understand is, how can you say that Jermaine Ortiz is terrible and he's a disgrace to boxing when your fighter, the guy who you wanted to win, Teofimo Lopez, ain't done nothing? He did nothing in the fight. He landed almost nothing in the fight, was missing like crazy, getting tagged up left, right, and center. Even at times being on the back foot dominated. But that's not a travesty. You know what's a travesty, Mr. Bob Arum? And you always say a lot of idiotic things, but this, of all things, is very idiotic. You know what's a travesty? The scorecards, the judging of that fight. That fight wasn't close at all. It was not a close fight. It wasn't a fight in which Teofimo Lopez won. How can you win fights when you're getting bopped upside the head and you're not throwing any punches? Your opponent's outlanding you the entire fight. How do you win a fight like that? And then Teofimo Lopez wants to quote Willie Pep. Willie Pep won a fight without throwing a single punch. That's because he wasn't hit with any punches. So his defense shone out, and because of that, he won the round. That's not the case with Teofimo Lopez. He's getting tagged up left, right, and center. And at the same time, he's not landing much of anything. Okay? T is trying to talk like he's a defensive genius or something. He's not. So Mr. Bob Arum, once again, makes the headlines with statements that make absolutely zero sense. Zero sense. I want to say also, shout out to Greg Hackett. Talking everybody out the truth. A lot of people saying, I edged this fight to Jermaine Ortiz, and I edged this fight. Edge what? It's not no edge. This was no close fight like that. I listened to, who was it? I think it was Kenny Ellis. And Kenny Ellis was saying that he had Jermaine Ortiz winning 8 rounds to 4. Okay, 8 rounds to 4. It's not bad. I'm not saying 8 rounds to 4 is impossible. I don't see any way how Tio won 4 rounds. That's all I'm saying. Okay? This was a clear win for Jermaine Ortiz, according to Greg Hackett. This was a clear win for Jermaine Ortiz. I agree with Greg Hackett. Show me, what did Teofimo Lopez do? What did he do better than Jermaine Ortiz? What did he do better than Jermaine Ortiz? Just show me. As I said before, I was listening to Coach Kenny Ellis, and Coach Kenny Ellis was saying that Teofimo Lopez, fell short with his punches, and that Jermaine Ortiz could have sat down more on his punches. Sat down before he stepped away. Maybe. But my thing is, why are you sitting down on your punches when you're dealing with a guy who's already acclimatized to the weight class and a dude who is strong? You sat down on 1 or 2 punches and you realize you can't get this guy out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to box him. And that's what Jermaine Ortiz decided to do. You know, he kind of realized almost from the outset, this guy's too sturdy for me to get him out of there. I'm going to break him down and see if I can get him. But if I can't break him down and get him, I'm just boxing. And that's what he did. He outboxed him. So I can't see how in any shape or frame or sense, you know, that you can say that Teofimo Lopez won this fight in any way. No way. No way. And as Greg Hackett said, it's a travesty. And I'm going to say this. When guys like Bob Arum, who is a seasoned promoter, knows boxing, when he opens his mouth and says really dumb things, it turns people off the sport of boxing. Because people are left confused. Well, I don't understand. What my eyes saw was a guy outbox another guy. But now here's a promoter, a guy who has extensive experience in boxing, saying that it's the other guy who completely outboxed the other guy, who is a travesty. He is a soul disgraced boxer. Okay, I understand that guys are saying one thing, and these guys are saying the opposite. But that's the way how they try to do it. They try to play it. So you can't follow the sport. Well, you can't read the sport. They try to spin the narrative. It's dishonest. And it's something that needs to be purged from the sport of boxing. I was hearing another thing. You know, the interviewer was trying to get Kenny Ellis to say, and he kind of was coercing him into saying that it's all about the matchups. Teo matched up bad with Jermaine Ortiz, and that's why he got the stinker. No, it's about the best facing the best. And Jermaine Ortiz was the best possible opponent to face Teofimo Lopez, point blank, period. Boxing's not about custom-made guys to make other guys look good. That's not what boxing's about. Boxing's about moving you along. Matchmakers are important for moving you along based on the level you're at. Nobody's doubting that. Nobody's disputing that. But once you reach at a certain level, you fight guys at that level. You don't fight guys to make you look good and they're not at the same level as you. And Jermaine Ortiz and Sandor Martin were beautiful stiff tests of Teofimo Lopez to see where he was at. Both Sandor Martin, George Kambosos, and Jermaine Ortiz proved to us that Teofimo Lopez has not evolved as a fighter since his last loss to George Kambosos. Showed us he's vulnerable still to a style that can move, that can outpoint him, that can keep him at bay, and keep him at a range he's uncomfortable with because he can't do his trades, he can't do his counters because he's too far out. He has to reach to get to the inside. We know this now. Devin Haney would have probably dropped him and probably outboxed him ultimately in the end. You know? So when you look at these fights, it tells you something. I told you, Teofimo Lopez is a limited fighter. I told you he's a flawed fighter. And that evidence is now proven to be a fact now. I'm saying, yes, sir. So when I look at guys like Teofimo Lopez, when I look at guys like Vasily Lomachenko, you know, they're limited fighters. People don't like to hear me say that, but it's true. They're limited. They're limited to what range they fight. They're limited to defensively certain things they do once they are on a defense mode. They're vulnerable because once you push them back on a defensive, you know, and make them defensive, suddenly they're not throwing it. Out of Viterbiev's the same thing. So Jermaine Ortiz is an even better fighter than Teofimo Lopez on the back foot. Teofimo Lopez realized he couldn't fight Jermaine Ortiz on the back foot. He couldn't. Just couldn't. All right? again, that's not no knock to Teofimo Lopez. It just is that he has some work to do. And if you keep on, now you're trying to custom make fighters for him to cover up his flaws, he's not going to grow as a fighter. He's not going to develop as a fighter. So what do you expect from him? What do you expect from him after that? You know what I'm saying? He's going to just stay in his same crippled state, and he's not going to evolve, which is not the point of these fights. Okay? And Bob Arum making excuses for Jermaine Ortiz is not going to change the situation. Jermaine Ortiz, I don't care if you're being re-signed to Bob Arum, I couldn't care less. Jermaine Ortiz is still a flawed fighter. He's still an incomplete fighter. No matter how much talk and how much things he says, Terrence Crawford is a complete fighter with special effects. Destroy Teofimo Lopez. Destroy him. That's what he would do. We destroy him. Okay? Now, with respect to Jermaine Ortiz is showing us so many different wrinkles, so many different, his versatility, so many different facets of his game. So you have to ask yourself this question. Why is it that they're trying to get rid of Jermaine Ortiz? That's Bob Arum. They're trying to blackball him now. I'm trying to label him bad because he had such a great performance. Why would people do that? Why would Bob? Because he's a threat to all those fighters at the 140-pound division, 135. He's a threat. He exposed Lomachenko, and now he's exposed Teofimo Lopez. Both fights he never got the decision on. One of which he should have gotten the decision on. He was robbed, quite frankly. But because he's not a big name, and because these people can spin narratives and have people who are supposedly experts in the sport of boxing singing their tune, we get what we get. But let it be known, Teofimo Lopez didn't win that fight. He lost it. He didn't win that fight at all. Let it be known. And you know, with a sport like this, where it's about hitting and not getting hit. It's about the sweet science. To see that on display, and to see that get reprimanded, to see that get chastised by fighters who did who's this guy? I don't know. He's probably blowing that guy over there. Okay. Who is this about? What is this about? This is mixed messages. Hold on one second. So, to hear people talk about, you know, that the guy that deserves to get praised for upsetting another fighter, he gets chastised, and the guy who underperformed, the guy shown to be deficient, he's defended. That's some back for front stuff. We've seen it with Nonito Donaire versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. We've seen it with Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko. We've seen it with Canelo versus Triple G. I'm tired of these stupid things. These are stupid narratives that have no substance whatsoever. And just back for front. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they make no sense. They make no sense. But the reason these people do it is because they're trying to cover up propaganda and a lie, somehow restore Teo's image and push behind it with their machine. Okay? because he's fake. Tyson Fury, they're fake guys. When they fight the real deal, they come up short. But then the industry and all the machine comes in and covers for them. That's what's up. So that's what you need wanted to say. I want to expose it. I want to expose it for what it is. You know, they say, I was listening to the conversation that was talking about the casuals. You know, the casuals. They want to see rock up, sock up, roll bars. The other guy was talking about catch and shoot. You know, there's catch and shoot, then there's, you know, make them miss, make them pay. But as Kenny Ellis said, he likes the strategy, the tactics of the sweet science of boxing. And guess what? Casuals can see that if there isn't a commentator saying really ridiculous things, the casuals would pick it up as well. And they would say things that make go, oh, my boy's dressed to the nines. Well, all right, brother. Do you? Yeah. The casuals would see what they see with their eyes, and they would talk based on what they see, like any other sport. The only reason why they're called casuals is because they get confused by things when they watch a boxing fight. But these same casuals are very knowledgeable of other sports, and they don't spend as much time in those other sports either. So how is that the case when you have people who are gatekeeping the boxing fraternity, talking about casuals, or they're talking about people who don't understand the sport of boxing? But then you have these ridiculous outcomes of fights. They're just terrible. Just brother, you do you, man. Keep it going. Yeah. You have these ridiculous outcomes of fights. Okay? And after that, what you gonna say? What you gonna say? Ridiculous outcome of a fight, and ridiculous remarks about the outcome from professionals. They refused to call it a robbery, which it was. It's a robbery. You know what I'm saying? It was a robbery. They robbed Jermaine Ortiz. It's the truth. And nothing Bob Arum will say will change that. Nothing that the establishment says will change that. And nothing that that Teofimo Lopez says will change that. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, why not just go with the truth? Because people can pick out when something is fake. They can pick out when you're lying to them. And they just disengage from the sport of boxing. Of course, that favors certain people in boxing who they want the status quo to stay the way it is. They want to do so they can be corrupt and make as much money under the table and above the table as possible. But for the sport itself, that's hurting the sport, man. That's definitely hurting the sport. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely hurting the sport. You know, you look at any sport. I'm not saying you don't get bad refereeing or bad umpiring in different sports. They happens, but more or less, for the most part, you know, the outcome of those sporting events. I remember they had multiple games in those sporting events. So you got the best of 5 or the best of 7 or something like that, right? Whereas in boxing, there's no best of nothing. You fight or fight, and there's a winner, and there's a loser, and there's a draw. That's how boxing works. cards. It's not like you can just, pull something out of the, clear blue sky and say, oh, best of 3, or best of 4. So you get, oh, you got this, and now he gets this. It doesn't work like that, right? So ultimately, in the end, you have to ask yourself this question. You have to ask yourself the question, people's careers, they're talking about Jermaine Ortiz's confidence. I don't see his confidence being phased. I don't see his confidence being phased at all. But I do see him looking at the process and realizing the politics of the process and being disappointed that the process has failed once again. Failed him, has failed the fans. Got all the fans looking at this thing with incredible. Look, people crying out robbery because it was a robbery. This was a robbery. This wasn't a close fight, ladies and gentlemen. Alright? It was somewhat competitive, but it wasn't a close fight at all. You know what I'm saying? Not at all. So, by and large, we can't look at Jermaine Ortiz and say with a straight face, oh, you were, like Bob Arum saying, Jermaine Ortiz, he's a plague on boxing, some words of that. You can't say that with a straight face. Bob Arum be throwing people under the bridge because they expose other fighters that he wants to promote heavily, right? Bob Arum has been bad for the sport of boxing for the longest while. Nobody want to say that, but I've been saying it. You know my earlier videos on what I thought about Bob Arum. And this guy continues to try to tear down fighters. You're supposed to be the promoter of Jermaine Ortiz. And here you are tearing down a fighter that you promote. Right? Oscar De La Hoya is very careful about what he says about Ryan Garcia. But not Bob Arum. Bob Arum liked to he liked to tear down fighters. Jermaine Ortiz fought a hell of a fight. He understands the politics of boxing. He comes from the cloth of Marlon Hagler, who wouldn't get decisions that he was supposed to get. Now, Jermaine Ortiz is the victim of 2 adverse decisions up against him, of which it's questionable with one, whether he won or not. The second one, oh man, he won that fight. He straight downright won that fight. And this is the ugly side of boxing. Now, I was listening to, I forgot what his name is, he's an African dude who works for DAZN. And he was saying that Jermaine Ortiz, is just one of several robberies or decisions that make you scratch your head and say, what's going on? This is not right. He talked about Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor. He talked about Raleigh Romero versus what's the guy's name? The Venezuelan dude, which I disagree. I think Raleigh would have won that fight anyway, but it is what it is. He talked about also, what was the other fight he talked about? He talked about it's strange he didn't talk about Isaac Cruz versus Gervonta Davis, but he also talked about some other fight. I think it was Otto Wallen versus Tyson Fury. I don't think it was Otto Wallen versus Tyson Fury because I think Tyson Fury actually won that fight. It was another fight. I think Ngannou versus Tyson Fury, which I didn't think Ngannou won, but he did do incredibly well. I think Tyson Fury again pulled away in the 12th round. He pulled it out in the 12th round. It was a very close fight. But having said that, you have to ask yourself a question. You have to ask yourself several questions. The first question is, why would judges fill their pockets to accommodate a promoter? And why would a promoter look to paint their fighter in a favorable light, stunting their growth and actually hurting their progress just to sort of create an image of them that is failing. It's failing because, again, even though the casual fans may not quite be able to put their finger on why Teofimo Lopez didn't look good and is not good at fighting certain types of fighters, those who know or in the know, they can articulate it better. And the thing about this is this: Teofimo Lopez, not only did he lose that fight, but for those in the know, he's now on the menu. He's on the menu for Helen, I believe this was the lady who was asking for cane juice. Yes. Good afternoon. You were the lady yesterday who were asking about cane juice? No, it was not you. I am sorry. My bad. All right. Ooh, you have different children as well.
You know the benefits of cane, right?
No, it's not her. It's not her.
But you know the benefits of cane? It's only
right. So anyway, going back to what I was saying. So, yeah, it staunts it staunts Teofimo Lopez's progression as a fighter, and on top of that, it is why would you, as a promoter, blacklist Jermaine Ortiz? Why would you try to blacklist him so he can't get other fights? That's nasty, that's dirty, and that's Bob Arum opening his mouth as usual and just trying. He's always viciously evil. He doesn't do anything with good intent, and people who laugh with him don't realize that this old man, he got an evil streak in him. He's worse than what's the guy's name? Barroso was the guy that Rolly Romero faced. He's worse than the guy. What's his name? He's worse than the guy. What's his name? What the guy name? The guy is he's worse than the guy. What's the guy name? The guy's name is Jesus. The guy who promoted Mike Tyson and all these other people. I can't remember. I just can't remember his name for nothing. These guys, you know, you have to ask yourself this question. Teofimo Lopez, what has he done of late that was great? You say the Just Taylor fight, but Just Taylor was weight drained. Looked good in the Just Taylor fight, but Just Taylor needed to move up to 147. Right? So he's going to be slower and more sluggish than normal. Then Teofimo Lopez wants to go and say that Terrence Crawford faced injured fighters. You faced a weight drained Josh Taylor. That's what you're getting your win over. And supposedly injured Vasily Lomachenko. I don't believe Lomachenko was injured, but supposedly injured Vasily Lomachenko. So, aren't you really speaking about your situation? That your greatest wins were against injured fighters? So why would you now go at Terrence Crawford and try to make that claim when you did the same thing? I mean, when you look at these fighters and you look at what they really are about, guys who make a lot of excuses or talk a lot. Rolly Romero, flawed fighter. Teofimo Lopez, flawed fighter. Ryan Garcia, flawed fighter. They make a lot of chirping noise. Why do they do that? Because they want to misdirect you and they want to hype a fight. They want to create some buzz because they of themselves with their abilities are limited. They're limited fighters with their abilities. That's the truth of the truth of the matter. So Teofimo Lopez is once again showing us that he just keeps on exposing more and more, and the more the people try to defend him, it's kind of like Israel versus Palestine. The more people try to defend Israel, it's the worse they look, because Israel's not doing something constructive. And it's the same thing for Teofimo Lopez. The more people try to defend Teofimo Lopez's loss to Jermaine Ortiz, is the more he looks bad, and it's the more people are convinced, and even casuals are convinced, he did not win that fight. It's not, things are not long lasting when you don't abide in the truth. When you don't abide in the truth, you don't get long lasting results. What you get is more lies to cover up more lies. That's the truth of the matter. Right? And Teofimo Lopez, you know, has been founded. His fame is now cemented in several lies. We saw his deficiency in the Sandro Martin fight. We saw his deficiency in the Ortiz fight, and we saw his deficiency against George Kambosos. And what's weirdest things is people go in on guys like George Kambosos, who face everybody, who still prove himself. They go in on fighters like Devin Haney. They go in on fighters like they even go in on fighters like Teofimo Lopez, right? They go in on these fighters, but you know, when you look at what's happening there, you realize, hey, these guys ain't about it. They ain't not about it. You know, it's not a Teofimo Lopez I consider to be a horrible fighter or a poor fighter. It's that Teofimo Lopez is a fighter who is flawed. And you're not going to overcome your flaws with lies to cover it up. You understand what I'm saying? And people could talk about, pay-per-view and draw and matchups and exciting. Fighter must look exciting. And so on, so on, so on. But you can be as excited as you want. You can take the tank route. Guess what? To take the tank route means you're not facing the best. You can talk about it until you drop down and die. You have to face the best. You have to beat the best to be the best. And Tank ain't the best fighter out there, because he hasn't beaten the best. It's just what it is. I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace.